Who is the most powerful Green Lantern in DC history? Most people would probably say Hal Jordan. Some would say John Stewart. Hardcore fans might say Sodam Yat. But the answer is probably none of them. Because one Green Lantern has reached a level of power so ridiculous that even DC itself has recently described him as the strongest lantern of all. And that isn't Hal Jordan. It's Kyle Rayner. Today, we're ranking the 10 most powerful Green Lanterns ever, based on their peak abilities, their biggest feats, and the most insane power-ups they've ever received. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, the word superhero is going to feel way too small. Before we start, one important rule. I'm ranking these characters based on their highest level of power as a lantern. That means major lantern-related transformations count. White Lantern Kyle counts. Ion Sodam Yat counts. Godstorm John Stewart counts. But completely separate mantles, like Hal Jordan as the Spectre, do not. Otherwise this stops being a Green Lantern ranking and turns into a list of completely different cosmic beings. We're also ranking power, not popularity. So yes, some very famous Green Lanterns are going to be much lower than you expect. Starting at number 10. Jessica Cruz. And honestly, Jessica might be one of the easiest lanterns to underestimate. She didn't become powerful because she started out fearless. She became powerful because she wasn't. Jessica's entire story is built around overcoming fear, anxiety, and self-doubt, which makes her relationship with the Green Lantern ring especially important. And once she became a true lantern, the feats started getting ridiculous. Jessica has fought Red Lanterns, helped create a force field around the Earth, and even managed to hurt Darkseid. She has also performed feats of raw strength on a ridiculous scale, including holding up more than 100 sextillion tons of rock. And for a brief period, she even had access to the Omega effect. That's an absurd resume for someone who started as one of the least confident people imaginable. But compared with the lanterns higher on this list, Jessica is still only getting started, and that's why she's number 10. Number 9. Kilowog. If you only know Kilowog as the Green Lantern Corps' giant drill sergeant, you're missing the point. Kilowog is one of the Corps' most experienced warriors. He's fought the Manhunters, the Sinestro Corps, the Red Lanterns, the Black Lanterns, Parallax, and he's done it for years. But his most impressive ability isn't simply his strength. It's his mastery of the ring. Kilowog is a veteran lantern who understands exactly how dangerous that weapon can become in the hands of someone with enough experience. One of the craziest examples is what he did for his own species. He used his ring to store roughly 15 billion members of his race until they could find a new home. That's not just raw power. That's insane control. And then there's the small fact that Kilowog has also helped repel Parallax and has defeated other Green Lanterns in combat. He's not flashy. He's not the strongest person here. But if the universe needed one lantern to survive a war, Kilowog would be very high on the list. At number 8. Gardner. Yes, Gardner. The loudest man in the Green Lantern Corps somehow makes the top 10. And the reason is simple. Guy's willpower is genuinely terrifying. He's not just a hothead. He has repeatedly demonstrated that his Green Lantern constructs can become enormous and ridiculously powerful. He's defeated Kilowog. He's defeated Atrocitus. He's survived situations that should have killed him. And in some stories, Guy's willpower is so intense that his own ring struggles to contain the amount of energy he's generating. That's a pretty important detail, because Green Lantern power is fundamentally about will, and Guy has a ridiculous amount of it. The funny thing is that Guy is often treated as the comic relief lantern, but put him in a serious fight, and suddenly nobody is laughing. This is also why his presence in the upcoming Lantern series is so interesting. Nathan Fillion's Gardner might look like comic relief, but the comic version is much more dangerous than that. Number 7. Sinestro. And yes, I'm counting him, because before Sinestro became the greatest enemy of the Green Lantern Corps, he was one of its greatest members. In fact, he was good enough to become Hal Jordan's mentor. That alone should tell you something. Sinestro's greatest weapon has always been his mind. He's disciplined. He's calculating. He's extremely skilled with a ring. And his willpower is so extreme that he's even overloaded and destroyed Green Lantern rings. During his time as a Green Lantern, he defeated Star Sapphire and imprisoned multiple Lantern Corps members. And one of his strangest feats, he was able to create a permanent, functional Green Lantern ring. Not borrow one, not temporarily use one, create one. That is the kind of mastery you don't see from an average lantern, and that's why Sinestro belongs above Guy. He isn't simply powerful, he's precise. And given that Ulrich Thompson's Sinestro is about to appear in Lanterns, this is probably the perfect time to remember that the character wasn't born a villain. He was one of the best Lanterns who ever lived. Number 6. Mogo. And this is where things get weird, because Mogo isn't a human. He isn't even remotely human-sized. Mogo is a living planet. And yes, he is a Green Lantern, which creates a very simple problem for anyone trying to fight him. How exactly do you punch a planet? Mogo has used his own body as a weapon. He's manipulated his surface to create earthquakes and storms. He's incinerated thousands of black lanterns inside himself. He's destroyed fleets of starships. He's pushed away. And at one point, he created a beacon so powerful that it illuminated an enormous portion of the universe. Mogo isn't just a Green Lantern with a planet-sized body. His planet-sized body is part of his power set. So when we talk about raw destructive potential, there are very few Lanterns who can compete. And somehow, he's still only number 6. Number 5. Alan Scott. And this one needs an explanation, because Alan Scott isn't a member of the modern Green Lantern Corps. His powers come from the Starheart. He's the original Green Lantern, and that distinction actually makes him more dangerous. The Starheart is a mystical power source created by the Guardians and connected to ancient magical energy, which means Alan's powers aren't limited to the normal rules of a standard Green Lantern ring. At his peak, the Starheart has unleashed enough power to destabilize magic across Earth and empower Alan with both light and dark mystical forces. During Brightest Day, the sheer amount of power involved became a threat even the combined Justice League and Justice Society struggled to contain. That's important because most Green Lanterns fight using willpower. Alan can combine Green Lantern-style abilities with something much more unpredictable: magic. And magic is one of the areas where the normal rules of the Lantern Corps start breaking down. So yes, Alan Scott is old. Very old. But don't confuse old school with weak. He is number 5. Number 4. Hal Jordan. And this is probably where a lot of people start yelling at the screen, because DC itself has described Hal Jordan as the greatest of all living Green Lanterns. So how is he only number 4? Here's the answer. Peak power isn't the same thing as being the greatest Green Lantern. Hal has one of the most ridiculous power resumes in DC. His willpower has allowed him to phase through matter, travel through time, create pocket dimensions, generate shields on a planetary scale, contain unbelievable amounts of power, and his battles have repeatedly reached cosmic levels. At certain points in his history, Hal has even transformed into beings of pure willpower. And yes, his Parallax era is one of the most powerful versions of the character ever. But I'm separating Parallax from the pure Green Lantern ranking here, because once Hal becomes the host of an entity like Parallax, we're no longer measuring what the normal Green Lantern can do. We're measuring what Hal can do after becoming something fundamentally different. Even without that version, Hal's willpower remains legendary. He is the benchmark, the standard that almost every other Lantern is compared against. And that makes his number 4 position even more impressive, because the 3 people ahead of him are not just better Green Lanterns. They reached completely different levels of power. Number 3. Sodam Yat. And if you've never heard that name before, you are about to understand why Green Lantern fans won't stop talking about him. Sodam Yat is from Daxam, which means that before he even gets a Green Lantern ring, he's already incredibly powerful. Daxamites have abilities comparable to Kryptonians: super strength, super speed, heat vision, freeze breath, flight, and solar energy absorption. Now give that guy a Green Lantern ring. That's already ridiculous. But Sodam Yat doesn't stop there. He becomes Ion, the physical embodiment of Green Lantern willpower. And suddenly you're not looking at a normal Corps member anymore. You're looking at a cosmic powerhouse. Sodam has fought Superba Prime, survived the center of a star, matched the power of the Emerald Eye, and destroyed ranks, a sentient, planet-sized Sinestro core war machine. That's why the Corps' prophecy around Sodam Yat is taken so seriously. He's not simply another talented lantern. He's basically what happens when you combine Superman-level biology with one of the most powerful weapons in the universe. And yet, he isn't number one, because the top two are in a completely different category. Number 2. John Stewart. And this is the ranking that makes the upcoming Lanterns series especially interesting, because the John Stewart we're about to meet on HBO is only at the beginning of his story. Comic book John eventually becomes something much larger. He's a Marine, an architect, a master of construction, and his Green Lantern constructs are famously precise and unusually solid. He's held together the Earth, created armies, constructed a solar system, destroyed Mogo, hit targets at absurd distances, and created constructs so extreme that they can literally interact with the boundaries of the comic itself. But then John reaches a point where the normal rules stop applying. He gains access to the Godstorm, and becomes the Emerald Knight. At this level, John isn't simply manipulating Green Lantern energy. He's connected to something much closer to creation itself. He transcends normal time and space, creates a new universal lantern battery, and battles, and kills, corrupted new gods. This is why I put John above Hal. Not because he's more iconic, not because he's about to appear on HBO, but because his highest established lantern form reaches a more ridiculous level of cosmic power. And that's what this ranking is measuring. Peak power, not fame. And if Lanterns is truly the beginning of John's journey, the DCU has barely scratched the surface of what this character can eventually become. And finally, number 1. Kyle Rayner. Yes, Kyle Rayner. Not Hal Jordan. Not John Stewart. Not Sodam Yat. Kyle. And there is a very good reason for that. Kyle's greatest achievement wasn't simply becoming a better Green Lantern. It was becoming something beyond a Green Lantern. A White Lantern. Kyle was one of the first characters able to fully master the emotional spectrum rather than being limited to a single color. And that means something enormous. Green represents willpower. Yellow represents fear. Red anger. Blue hope. Violet love. And the rest of the emotional spectrum carries its own power. Kyle was able to bring those forces together. And that's what eventually turned him into a White Lantern. His abilities reached a level where he could manipulate the full spectrum and operate on a scale far beyond a standard Green Lantern. He's contained a supernova, helped connect 132 planets, rebuilt the Green Lantern core, resisted the anti-life equation, helped hold back a multidimensional Big Bang, and at his peak as Ion, he approached something close to omnipotence and omnipresence. But the most important part is this. Kyle's power isn't just about having the strongest ring. It's about understanding all of the emotions that make a lantern powerful in the first place. And that's why DC's own 2026 editorial literally framed the question as, why Kyle Rayner is the strongest lantern of all. So if we're ranking the highest level a lantern has actually reached, Kyle gets the crown. And that's my top 10. Jessica Cruz, Kilowog, Guy Gardner, Sinestro, Mogo, Alan Scott, Hal Jordan, Sodam Yat, John Stewart, and Kyle Rayner at number 1. But here's the funny thing. The Green Lantern universe is so absurdly large that you can argue about this list forever. Maybe you put Hal above John. Maybe you think Sodam Yat should be number 2. Maybe you don't count White Lantern Kyle at all. And honestly, that's what makes this mythology so much fun. Because Green Lantern isn't really about who punches the hardest. It's about what a person can do when their will becomes the weapon. And that's exactly why the upcoming Lantern series matters. We're about to meet a new live-action John Stewart. A John who is nowhere near his comic book peak. A Hal Jordan who is already being presented as a veteran. And a universe that is just beginning to open up. So maybe the most interesting question isn't, who is the strongest Green Lantern? Maybe it's, who will John Stewart eventually become? And that's a story I'm definitely watching. So tell me, did I get the ranking right? Who belongs at number 1? Kyle? Hal? John? Or someone completely different? Drop your ranking in the comments. And if you're getting ready for Lanterns, subscribe, because this Green Lantern rabbit hole is only getting started.